What is up, everyone? Welcome into week 3 of the PFF betting show. And it was a decent week too for us as far as recommendations on the pod. I hit game market, prop market, but Judah hit his 70-1 Lions SGP. I was erring on the side of caution with JMO against too high, but it's always JMO week apparently.
It is always JMO week, but I have to say it was balanced by me coming on this show talking about Torrey Horton. Mason coming in and being like, this is a Torrey Horton household, and lo and behold, Torrey Horton catches a touchdown pass. I think the L there kind of counterbalances the SGP win.
Hey, Judah, if my under in that game had to die so your parlay could live, I'm happy to fall on the sword there.
You are a man of the people.
But we have a next week mentality, one game at a time. So we're going to come back this week and try to give you some winners. And we'll start out just quick overview of the slate. Looking in the PFF app on the games tab where you can see all the consensus lines for spread, money lines, and totals, in addition to the new player props tool, which we'll be running through as we talk about some player props today. So we had Dolphins-Bills last night. The Dolphins cover, and honestly, they were in that game for most of the game, kind of unexpectedly. I feel like a lot of it was really good job converting on 3rd and 4th downs. Right? It wasn't a lot of big plays, but it seemed like every time they needed a play on 3rd or 4th down, they made it. Obviously, the Zach Sealer roughing the punter penalty was a big swing in that game. And the 2 interception down in the goal line, which is like that's the gift and the curse of Tua blindly trusting the offense and people being open is plays like that where Terrell Bernard just undercuts it.
I think that pass was also tipped, and kind of why it went right into Bernard's hands. But yeah, I think you're right. This was like a pretty close, shockingly close game, and like the Bills were on the right side of 2 very high leverage plays at the end. The thing I haven't looked at the data yet. I don't think it's been has made it to my feed yet. But Tua, at least from the eye test, seemed like he was creating a lot more than usual. Like he was working that pocket a bit, and that's a little bit of an encouraging sign. Though every time he crosses the line of scrimmage and is running, I like shudder. I'm like, oh no, what's about to happen?
Yeah, and it's specifically running out to his left, right? He made a few plays. The big 3rd down to Tyreek coming to mind and a few others. So won't spend a ton of time on that game, but we will jump into our game market bets. And like I mentioned, PFF Plus subscription will get you access to the player prop tool in the app. We'll also get you access to premium stats where you can go and play around with some of the data that we're talking about yourself, all right, as you're looking to make these bets. But we're going to get started with Dallas against Chicago. Dallas coming off a crazy back and forth game against the Giants in week 2. Chicago just disappointing in general. An 0-2 start after all the excitement around Ben Johnson and this offense and the new coaching staff, and can they take a step forward? We haven't really seen that to this point this year, but is this the week that Chicago can get on the board and get a win?
I mean, it's a tough look because, he calls out the team in practice and, it hasn't been coming together on the field. It's sort of a waiting game because we know he's a really good coach and coaching is important in this league, but something's got to give. They've got to sort of put it together and find some ways to do it. And hopefully this might be a spot where they can figure it out with, a pretty troubled Cowboys defense on the schedule.
Yeah, and Judah, I think you're saying no with your.
I'm saying no. I'm saying no. I'm saying that this is a Chicago Bears defense that, mind you, they finished the end of last season as like maybe the worst pass defense in football. And certainly in the explosive play department where they were just getting shredded week after week. It's not a good defense to start with. Add on the fact that like their entire secondary is hurt right now. Notably like Jalen Johnson, who is like a stud corner for them, and then Kyler Gordon in the slot also I think should miss. And you're looking at a team where if we pulled up the chart of like effectively their ability to create any sort of disruption, whether that's from coverage or pass rush, and they are dead last in the NFL here. And it is, I think, a function of like both scheme and talent here. And it matters twofold. Number one, like you're just not going to have a lot of defensive success this way. But I think in particular against Dak Prescott, who is a quarterback that is like very, very sensitive to disruption. And like he does not have a great offensive line, right? I think that's kind of going to be a major problem for Dallas going forward. It's very early in the season, obviously, but this certainly fits with his career kind of theme here. And he's seen the fourth fewest undisturbed plays. He's got the fourth highest EPA on those plays, though. And certainly when you account for the fact that like this is a Dallas offense that in the past couple of years with the lack of wide receiver depth was like last in separation earned. They're barely forcing any coverage mistakes. They're totally middle of the pack so far this year. And I think Dak Prescott, it's not a coincidence that he's seen a lot better passing outcomes through 2 weeks, though I do think he's obviously played some good games. This is a really, really bad Bears defense. There are a couple other pieces to this, and I'll be a little disjointed here because I want the last part to kind of, I'm curious your all thoughts here. I'm going to flip to the Bear side for a second. Okay. I think the obvious question is, okay, the Bears defense is terrible. So is the Cowboys, right? Like Russell Wilson just threw for 455 yards. And I think there are kind of two key points here. Number one, the way in which Russell Wilson won last week, I don't think is the way that Caleb Williams is going to win. Like Russell Wilson just generated a ton from deep passes, right? So much of that was like 50-yard bombs that Wilson kept on hitting. That's not Caleb Williams' game, both in terms of like his style of play and also like he cannot throw deep accurately. And the Cowboys are like a very conservative zone team. They're going to try and keep things in front of you that I don't think Williams is going to be able to replicate last week in particular, but also just looking at Caleb Williams' style of play. If we bring up this destroy rate chart, what destroy rate effectively is on plays in which the defense is like has some leakage, right? There is some disrupting event. Does the quarterback either throw an inaccurate pass? Does he take a sack, or does he run for negative EPA? And Caleb Williams, I mean, J.J. McCarthy's breaking the chart here, never a good sign. But Caleb Williams is at like 53%. This is the same as he was last year. It's like a bottom 5 mark in the NFL. And I think that renders you a bit more matchup, not irrelevant, but having a favorable matchup matters a little bit less if you were destroying so many of your own plays, right? This is kind of like defensive agnostic. So you add up both those pieces. I think Dallas is going to be able to better take advantage of a terrible Bears secondary than the Bears are. And I think this is a Dallas offense, just taking a kind of fundamentals point of view, that is a bit underrated, seeing it's like there's some major upgrades in their ability to earn separation and what that means in particular for a quarterback like Dak Prescott. The last thing I'll say, and I want to put this up, we got to talk about Clayton Adams. This is a guy who comes from Arizona, right? They have like a great run game for a couple of years. Dallas with Javonte Williams and this offensive line is first in rush success rate through 2 weeks. Like, I certainly did not have that on my bingo card. You look back at Arizona all of a sudden, obviously it's 2 weeks, it's a small sample. They're at the bottom of the league in a lot of rush categories. Like, is this guy the running game whisperer?
That's what a lot of shows around the country were trying to tell us in the preseason. Clayton Adams has like a cult following, and worth it based on the first couple weeks that we're seeing this year.
Where was this Javonte Williams in Denver?
Recovering from injuries. He's back to full health now, just in time to leave your Broncos.
Yeah.
But you like the over, Mason, so you have a little bit more faith in this Chicago offense against the Dallas defense that just gave up explosive after explosive to Russell Wilson.
Yeah, when we look at these two defenses, it was atrocious. I was on the wrong receiving end of this one last week, and I've learned from my mistake here. Both these defenses allowed a combined 92 points last week. That is obscene. Chicago alone, 52 to Detroit. Now, Detroit, obviously, well-coached team, but both of these defenses allowed over 500 yards of offense. That's a really tough look, and when we look at some of their advanced metrics and some of their grading, it does not get much better. When we look at Dallas, they're 29th in defensive grade at a 55.5, 31st in EPA, 27th in yards per play, 30th in successful play rate, and tied for 27th in offensive points allowed. It's just not a really good look. And when we go to the other side there, Chicago is looking similarly bad. Defensive grade, 31st, EPA, 27th, yards per play, 32nd, successful play rate 32nd, offensive points 32nd. So they're basement dwelling in a lot of these categories, which is not a good look. So of course, when you're coming up against a quarterback like Dak Prescott, who's second in PFF passing grade at 88.0, first in big time throws with 9, I think that it's just going to be an eruption for a Dallas offense that is just clicking on all cylinders. And, Judah said it. Both of these defenses have some pretty troubling injuries. I mean, we can start over with Chicago. Jalen Johnson likely out for the rest of the season. Kyler Gordon still yet to see the field. Jalen Jones, their highest graded coverage defender in the secondary was Jaquan Brisker at 60.1. Now, that's not a great look. 60 is sort of that exactly middle of the road of our grading scale there. And 2 players in this coverage team or in this secondary are bottom of the NFL in coverage grading. You have Nick McLeod, 33.7. That's 101st out of 104 corners. And Kevin Bayard, 29.1. That's dead last out of 76 safeties. So it's a pretty troubling look. And when we go to the other side of the ball, Dallas doesn't have Deron Bland, who was a DNP to start the week, missed last week. Trevon Diggs was dealing with an illness, but he came back to a full practice yesterday, I believe. So it's just a tough look for these teams. And while Caleb Williams has struggled mightily, I think that this is probably one of those spots where he should hopefully be able to get back. Now, I know they're not going to push the ball down the field, but Ben Johnson has been scheming up a lot of open receivers, and hopefully he can come back down to earth, find some rhythm and really figure this thing out against a pretty bad Dallas defense.
Yeah, I think my biggest question with the over is a big part of what made the Lions offense so successful was Jared Goff's willingness to make these throws downfield over the middle of the field and throw them with timing and with accuracy. That's not necessarily something that we've seen much from Caleb Williams, right? So I think this is a litmus test against a really bad Cowboys pass defense on whether we start to see more of that from Caleb Williams. To Judah's point about Dallas money line or Cowboys -1.5, the only unit that I really trust to be competent in this game is the Cowboys offense. And Dak has an 8 out of 9.7 yards downfield. He's pushing the ball downfield. Chicago's coverage unit is dead last in coverage grade on throws 10 plus yards downfield. Getting George Pickens has significantly helped this offense, right? CeeDee Lamb is not the only guy anymore, right? And just in terms of how teams have to play them coverage-wise, it opens up a lot more for CeeDee, and then George Pickens can make plays himself. We're seeing Jake Ferguson be a big part of this passing offense again, coming back off a 2024 season where he was dealing with some injuries. And then the run game part of it, right? To Judah's point, like they have a real run game now, at least through 2 weeks. And I don't think that's necessarily a mirage. Maybe it is. But you add a guy like Tyler Booker in the middle. I do think that has helped their run blocking a bit. So that's really the only unit I trust. But I do see the upside for the Bears offense. And I'm personally probably not going to bet the over, but I'm interested to watch. I'm definitely not betting the under either, to be clear. But I'm interested to watch whether Caleb Williams in this Bears offense, passing offense, can pick it up a little bit against Dallas.
Yeah, I guess that's the trick to getting good in the running game. Get a bunch of guys named Tyler on the offensive line, and you figure it out. And another thing is when we look at sort of the offensive personnel for Dallas and compare it to what Detroit's personnel is, really strong play out of the slot and wide with, a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown. You get that with CeeDee Lamb, and a field stretcher with George Pickens, which we got with Jameson Williams. So I think that you can see, or I would expect Dallas to take some of those concepts and really attack Chicago's defense like that. And, Detroit last week hit the overall by themselves. So it's one of those things that, a lot of the times to hit these big overs like this, it takes 2 to tango, but it might not necessarily do that with Chicago's defense. And, even still, like, this number probably when I was projecting during the week, early in the week, I was not expecting this number to really just be over that 50 line. I thought it was going to be probably in the 51, 52 range. So to get it at 50, I was pretty happy.
Yeah, we were Mason and I were sitting in the PFF office watching these games on Sunday, and it was just an absolutely brutal start for the under in that Bears Lions game. It was like the second quarter. I'm like, the under's cooked.
It was dead before 2:00. So, yeah.
But we live and we learn, and now he's going over in a Bears game. So.
now we're going over it.
We'll move on to my game market bet of the week, and one of the more interesting games of the week, in my opinion, Rams Eagles. Both teams are coming into this game at 2-0. The Rams are 3.5-point dogs. And last week, I was on Eagles -1 against Kansas City. That was primarily the Kansas City Chiefs just aren't that good in their current form right now. Doesn't mean they can't get significantly better once they get some more pieces back on the offense. This week, I'm kind of going on the other side. I really like Rams getting over a field goal against the Eagles. And part of this is, one, the Eagles' offense is just not that inspiring right now. Yes, Jalen Hurts is limiting negative plays. He's also not making any plays in the passing game, right? They had under 100 passing yards last week. They're doing very little to push the ball downfield. Judah's got like 20 million impressions on his time to throw versus ADOT the graph with Jalen Hurts in the bottom right. He almost has the same time to throw as his ADOT, which is quite remarkable. But so really on offense, the Eagles are relying on Saquon Barkley in the run game, where we haven't seen quite as many explosives as we did last year. That doesn't mean they're not coming, but they're relying on that and Jalen Hurts kind of managing things, not making negative plays. I think this is a Rams defense that can get after the quarterback a little bit. They've done a really good job on limiting underneath passes. They're second in EPA per play when it comes to throws less than 10 yards downfield. So the Eagles are going to have to push the ball downfield a little bit, I think, and unless Saquon Barkley can just dominate. And on the other side is really the area I'm more interested in the Rams, and it's their offense against the Eagles' defense. This kind of relates to what we were talking about with the Cowboys, but the Eagles are dead last in percentage of plays with positive EPA per play allowed in the run game. The Cowboys, the Chiefs less so, right, because the Chiefs can't really run the ball. But even like these short yardage plays, the Chiefs were able to convert at a decent rate against the Eagles. So that's really been the story with the Rams offense dating back a couple years. They're not explosive, but they do have a super high success rate in terms of the running game. Well, not super high, but they've been more successful than they've been explosive in the run game. So I think they might be able to have some success there. And then in the pass game, this is something I was kind of keeping an eye on coming into the season with Philadelphia. You lose Darius Slay, you lose Josh Sweat, you lose Milton Williams, you lose C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I thought there was a good chance that their pass defense would regress a little bit. And we've seen teams be able to attack them a little bit. Dallas in week 1, Kansas City hitting a few downfield plays last week. Adoree Jackson is 4th lowest for us in advanced coverage grade. And when you're playing against a Rams offense that added Davante Adams, specifically in this matchup, Davante Adams has a 90-plus grade this year against man coverage. The Eagles play a lot of man or match, right, that ends up looking like man. So you add that piece where Puka Nacua has a 90-plus receiving grade against zone coverage. Matthew Stafford is the highest graded passer in the NFL. Like, I think there's a realistic chance that this Rams offense has a lot of success through the air against Philadelphia, assuming they can pass protect. Stafford's one of these guys who's super sensitive to pressure dating back to last year. I think they'll be able to do well enough with the pieces on offense that they have with Adams and Nacua and Sean McVay calling the plays. So this is a spot with them getting more than a field goal that I'm really interested in the Rams.
Yeah. I was going to bring up, I think you make like a ton of really great points. I was going to bring up like Davante Adams kind of unlocking a lot of the more explosive elements of this offense. You don't think of Davante Adams as like, certainly not at this age, as like this, deep downfield threat, but like he is the highest deep grade right now in the NFL through 2 weeks. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And it's something that was like really lacking beyond Nacua for the Rams last year. Whether that was like, Kupp in the slot was just not the same he's not the same vertical threat. Right? Even when Kupp was at his best, so much of that was yards after the catch and catching sort of those middle of the field crossers and housing them. This is just like a real vertical element that the Rams haven't had. And Stafford has always graded extremely well. He's got like the highest accuracy rate on any of these throws of any quarterback. And what's even, just to go to the Eagles defense for a second, it's not just the loss of players, which obviously matters a ton. And like, we've seen the game of cornerback has very good year one and then regresses in year two more times than we can count. Like coverage is very voodoo in that way. But beyond that, the Eagles just like did not allow explosive plays, right? This is something, Ben, that we talked about on the podcast all the time last week. And now all of a sudden, like you're taking out screens, they're allowing a deep pass on 22% of passes. And like, sure, some of that is the Cowboys, but like that's not the Chiefs game, right? They're not looking to throw downfield, but the Eagles schematically this year are seemingly allowing many more of those plays. And like, I don't know if it's like a conscious choice or the personnel is almost dictating that, but I think that's a reality, right? And like your defense is going to be prone to plenty of these explosive plays. And with the Rams, don't have any huge names on the offensive line, but they don't have any weak links, right? All of these guys are graded above average by our PFF grade so far. So I'm fairly confident that the Rams can take a bunch of shots on these explosives, and if they hit, they can put up some points and like really put the pressure on the Eagles to not play this like extremely conservative I'm only going to throw check down game, because you can't do that if you're down by 10 points. And I think we're going to learn a lot of information about the Eagles offense in that game state.
Yeah, and one of the big things, too, is we talk about the coverage of the Eagles, where they were a dominant coverage unit last year. Well, they were also a great pass rushing unit last year, and this year they're just not quite hitting those marks. A lot of loss in personnel there. 46.9% pass rush win rate. That's 18th in the NFL. They're not too much higher in pass rush productivity and pressure rate. So that's going to be something that could be a problem, where we talk about, Stafford is a bit more sensitive to pressure. Well, the Eagles are going to have to generate that pressure to actually make this account for that. So,
yeah, and Walt in the chat saying Stafford needs to take some shot, or Stafford needs to throw the ball to whoever Adoree Jackson is covering, and that's it, right? We've done studies and we've written stuff on coverage being a weak link system. The Eagles have a very clear weak link, right? And the Rams are better suited to take advantage of it this year than they were last year, bringing in Devontae Adams. McVay is one of the offensive coordinators I trust most to take advantage of other teams' weaknesses. And this was a team that basically had the best chance of knocking off the Eagles of anyone in their Super Bowl run last year. They were a few plays off in that game from doing it, and I think it's a better unit right now. So Rams plus 3.5 is the final game market bet of the week. Before we jump into prop markets, we're going to hit the PFF betting segment presented by DraftKings. Whether you want to go and get on that Rams bet, whether you want to look somewhere else this week, the NFL season is rolling, and every touchdown can bring you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Every game is another chance to cash in. Don't just watch the action, win with it. DraftKings Sportsbook delivers the unmatched intensity of the NFL right to your fingertips, from first touchdown score to anytime touchdown props, or the thrill of live in-game betting. Every snap is loaded with opportunity. New customers, this one is for you. Bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, score over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Your season's heating up. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code PFF. That's code PFF to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first $5 bet, plus over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnerships with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Fees may apply in Illinois, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket/terms. Limited time offer. All right, Judah, we're going to kick it over to you for your prop bet of the week. And we're going to the hottest offense in the NFL, the offense that everyone is saying, is this the 2024 New Orleans Saints, or are they legit?
Yeah, that stuff kind of drives me insane. It's just like, hey, let's take a 2-week sample of an offense that was really good, and this happened last year, so therefore it's going to happen again this year. Like, come on. I don't think that maybe there's some truth in, like, yes, we shouldn't rush to crown a particular team as like the next great thing off the back of 2 weeks, but like that also doesn't mean they're the same thing at all. Not to mention the fact that like the entire Saints offensive line got hurt in that week 3 game against the Eagles last year. Either way, yes, this Colts offense has been terrific, and it's a surprise, no doubt. Though in some kind of small sample, Jones has been good, kind of like in system plays, and if you kind of elevate the system around him, I don't think it's as surprising that he's had this degree of success is for sure surprising, but that he's had some success. All of that is to say, like, yeah, I believe that this is a Colts offense that is going to be a lot better than what is currently being priced for Daniel Jones right now, which is like knowledge of Daniel Jones's, past couple of years with the Giants, which I just don't think are particularly relevant data points here. And like, I do think this is a Colts offense. I mean, the first game was like completely out of hand very quickly, but like while that game was still in hand, they were like passing above expectation up until that last drive, which, by the way, inexplicable coaching from the Colts there, just like at the 2-minute warning on the opposing team's 45-yard line, deciding like, hey, now we're just going to get into field goal range and not run the offense that has basically been impossible to stop the entire game and bank on a 60-yard field goal. That was insane. But point being there, like, I think it's a team that wants to pass. And you've got a Tennessee offense that I don't think is going to be able to sustain many drives. Cam Ward's got a like 15% sack rate right now. He might be a very good quarterback right now. I do not think he is there. I think the Colts should be running many plays, and they want to be passing. And this is like a totally vanilla Tennessee passing defense. They're like middle of the pack in yards per attempt. They're not creating much disruption at all. I just think like there's a lot of pricing right now of Daniel Jones in 2024, 2023, which is like not completely irrelevant, but basically irrelevant to the current situation he finds himself in Indianapolis, and they're healthy right now.
And the weapons, like, that was one of the things coming into the year where the Colts weapons just make sense together. Right? You have a vertical threat in Alec Pierce. You have kind of your intermediate guy in Michael Pittman, who can work over the middle of the field. You have Josh Downs, good route runner underneath, can get vertical too from the slot. And then you add Tyler Warren to the mix, who looks awesome.
Insane.
And you got Jonathan Taylor, right? It was one of those things where I didn't necessarily want to buy in because of what I've seen from Daniel Jones the last few years, but it looks really good early in the season. Right? And this is a beatable Titans defense. You can see in the PFF player prop tool, they're 20th in quarterback passing yards allowed versus that prop this year. Jones has cleared this line by a good margin the last 2 weeks if you look at the hit rate chart. So this is one that I can get on board with.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes down to Shane Steichen too. He's just calling this offense to perfection, putting them in positions to win, and they took down a really good Denver defense. And I mean, it came down to being a close game, but at a lot of points, it really didn't feel like they were out of reach at any single point. So it's a really strong called offense, and you made the point that they have all these tools, they have all these weapons. That's what makes the downfall of Anthony Richardson that much worse, because all they needed was him to be adequate. And that's what they've got with Daniel Jones, is an adequate quarterback. Now, he's not going to blow the roof off of anybody, but he's going to operate this offense to near perfection.
Yeah, and Warren Steichen has found his Dallas Goedert player that he can use in similar ways to what he was doing in Philadelphia. So, interested to see what the Colts can do here. Tennessee's offense also just has not been able to get anything going in terms of success rate, so you get the chance for more play volume here from Indianapolis. Mason, we'll jump to you. Who are you looking at this week in terms of props?
I'm liking Wan'Dale Robinson over 44.5 yards at -111. I know he's been dealing with the foot injury again this week. He was limited in practice, same as last week, but he ended up playing. He had a big game, cooked Dallas for 140 and a touchdown, and he is the value of this Giants receiving core. He's tied with Malik Neighbors in threat percentage, which is our rate of targeted on routes run, at 25%. And for the team lead with 14 receptions. His ranks in the NFL 4th in yards per route run at 2.74, 8th in yards after the catch at 67. And the biggest thing is Russ trusts him on late downs. A lot of his targets are coming on 3rd and 4th down. 10 receptions on 14 targets, both of which lead the NFL by a healthy margin. And when we look at this Giants offense, they're potentially going to get back Andrew Thomas this week. It's going to give Russ more time to throw the ball down the field. And, we've talked about it. This KC secondary is not quite as good. We've seen quite a bit of regression over the course of the end of last season and the start of this one. Kamari Connor, who they're going to be getting in the slot to cover Wan'Dale Robinson, 54.8 PFF coverage grade. That's not a great look. We saw what the Chargers did to them in week 1. Keenan Allen, Ladd McConkey, Quentin Johnston, they had 101 yards out of the slot. We've talked about Philly. They were pretty pass-averse in that game, but 40 of their 101 total passing yards came from Devontae Smith out of the slot. I mean, I like even alt lines on this one up to 70 plus at plus 308. So I think that's a really strong look when we see what this offense is going to have to do. They want to throw. They know they can. They're kind of feeling themselves after last week. Tough loss there, but they were right there in it with a really powerful offense in Dallas. And I think while we've seen Casey's regression, I think that Casey's a really well-coached team. They're going to be able to stay in it. They're going to be able to make this a competitive game. And I think that the Giants are going to be able to punch back and answer.
Yeah, watching that game, I was shocked about a lot of things. But one of them was Wan'Dale Robinson being a vertical threat. Like, Wan'Dale Robinson is the guy who I'm typically like 4-yard ADOT. He gets like 6 catches for 24 yards.
Over receptions, under receiving yards, king.
Yeah. Maybe not anymore.
Not anymore.
Maybe Russ has converted Wan'Dale Robinson into a burner downfield. But when we were showing the PFF player prop tool up there, you can see Robinson's 6th in receptions among wide receivers this year, receptions per game. Kansas City is 26th in receptions per game allowed to receivers. This was kind of something I talked about when I was making the case for the Eagles last week. Like, the Kansas City pass defense, I'm not necessarily bought in. They haven't been able to generate a ton of pressure. The coverage on the back end at the end of last season, and then even going into this year, when you look at week 1 and what they did against the Chargers, I'm a little bit nervous about that where it is right now. So it's a game that New York's probably going to have to pass, and could see Wan'Dale Robinson getting there. Interested to see, though, if this vertical stuff continues, because I'm not 100% sold yet, but maybe it does. We're going to wrap up with my player prop bet, and I'm going to Monday Night Football. In one of the more interesting games of the week, I feel like people are back on Detroit. After week 1 versus Green Bay, everyone was out. It's like, this team might not even make the playoffs, and then they drop 50 on the Bears, and it's like, all right, the old Detroit is back. This is a litmus test, though, against a very good Ravens team. And my prop is Jahmyr Gibbs over 3.5 receptions at -110. And the thought here is, I like the Ravens in this game. Right? I'm not necessarily buying into Detroit's offense. Last week off Chicago alone, we just spent, 15, 20 minutes talking about Chicago's defense at the top of this show. So this is a Ravens defense that is much more competent. Right? They got kind of shredded by a good Bills offense in week 1. But I think Detroit's going to be playing from behind in this game. And Jahmyr Gibbs, when he's playing from behind, dating back to last year, has a 23% target rate. That's 3rd highest among running backs. even if you look at the 2 games this year, week 1 against Green Bay, he had 10 targets, 10 receptions. Last week, he had 3 catches. They were playing from a more comfortable game script. They were able to get what they wanted downfield. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case against Baltimore. And the Ravens have given up receiving production to running backs, even dating back to last year. But this year, they've allowed 17 catches to running backs, which is tied most in the NFL with Seattle. So I think this is a spot when you're getting 4 receptions from Jahmyr Gibbs at minus 110, given that the game script that we're expecting Detroit to be playing catch-up. It's not going to be as easy for them to hit Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams downfield. I like this prop for Gibbs.
I love it. I think so much of this, as you mentioned, is game script, and even if not, there's no world in which the Lions are not going to have to pass a bunch. And I think this is a spot where you're going to need to take a bunch of these checkdowns, and they're scheming Gibbs targets too. I really love this spot.
Yeah, I know you're pretty big on the Ravens in general this week. I believe. So do you want to talk a little bit about the other side of the ball maybe, and what you think from this Baltimore offense against Detroit?
Yeah, I think this is just Detroit has played the most single high of any team at 75% right now. They're up there also in man coverage, and they just do not have the talent to match Baltimore right now. I love Zay Flowers stuff also. As a guy who, it's a tiny sample, of course, for this year, but he's got a 50%, threat rate, what I would call, targets per out run, and against single high coverage. And you look at also what Lamar Jackson can do scrambling against this man coverage unit. And I also I think this is a better and deeper receiving core than the Ravens have basically had in the Lamar Jackson era, both because I think Zay Flowers is emerging as a real top of the line receiver. DeAndre Hopkins is coming out of nowhere to catch a bunch of deep balls. Maybe he's not total dust. Rashad Bateman obviously had that kind of terrific year last year, or I should say a breakout year. I think they overmatch the Lions on the offensive side. On their offense overmatches the Lions' defensive side of the ball, and then flip it over for a second. I think you're right to kind of point out it was week 1's an overreaction. Week 2, we're right back to the old Lions, and I don't think that's true. We talked about the Bears defense, as you said. I think that was more a function of the Bears defense, and let me see Jared Goff in a negative game script against a much tougher Baltimore defense. There's a lot I think that needs to go right for the Lions to stay in the game, where the reverse is not true. And I think the Ravens are just going to score a ton of points on offense, and they're a house right now. Across the board, and if this defense is anything like the production of the second half of last year, and there are reasons to believe that, there are reasons not to. I think this game is really mispriced.
Yeah, and to your guys' point is that this market was set vastly different than it looks right now. The game total on this one started about 50.5 points, and the Lions were +6 in the look-ahead line, and now this line has moved down to +4 as public money is starting to come in. Over at 52.5, it's really skyrocketed there. It's reaching as high as 53 at some books. So just to your guys' point, I think a lot of the narrative is playing effect on this line and on these numbers. So I agree with you there. It's going to be a tough draw for the Lions. We're going to see probably right there in the middle of the road from what we saw in week 1 versus week 2. They're not going to blow the doors off of the Ravens like they did the Bears.
Yeah, and to the Hopkins point, it's very small sample against man coverage in 2 weeks, but his against man coverage numbers are great, right? And if we're seeing that against Detroit and playing man against the Ravens, maybe we don't see it, maybe we do. But I have some interest in Hopkins in addition to Flowers this weekend.
Hopkins, 93.6 receiving grade and under 30 snaps. So
love a late career revival.
Yeah,
on low volume. Right. All right. We just talked about some of the player props we like. If any of you watching want to throw out some player props you like for our prop culture segment, we'll combine 3 of those into a parlay, and then if it hits, proceeds are going to go to charity. And before we jump into the SGP section, where we talk about some more player prop angles in addition to kind of game angles that we like, let's talk about preparing for the future with your kids. As parents, we do everything we can to set our kids up for a successful future, academics, team sports, college admissions. But what about getting started financially when they're out on their own? Fabric makes it easy for you to set up an investment account for your child. Now that grows with them and helps prepare for their financial future. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. While your kids can invest when they're minors, a UGMA kids investment account allows you to invest on their behalf now and gives their investments more time to grow. Funds can be used for nearly anything benefiting your child, from tuition and books to summer camps and after-school activities. And when they're adults, they can use the funds for their first home, new car, or even to start a business. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. Portfolios managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, SGPs. Judah, you're going against my team here. Pittsburgh Steelers fan. The defense has looked brutal through the first 2 weeks of the season, and you're thinking that continues here.
Come on, Judah.
Yeah.
Let's get this winner. I got rent to pay.
If we get back-to-back weeks, that would be something. But I think Pittsburgh, first off, dealing with a lot of injuries on defense, and like I was as high as anyone on the Steelers defense coming into the season, and it's like been pretty shocking that they're second in yards per attempt allowed so far, and it's not as though they've gone against the gauntlet of quarterbacks. Although I guess Sam Darnold and Justin Fields are, maybe great passers these days. Who knows? But I think it's reflective of the Pittsburgh defense. The real angle I want to take advantage of here is looking at Keyshawn Boutte, who has like a near 30% target rate so far against man coverage. It's kind of sneakily been that wide receiver one for Drake May, dating back to the second half of last season. And this is a Pittsburgh team that's playing a lot of man coverage. And we talk about this all the time in man coverage relative to zone coverage, that like talent matchup matters a bit more. Like that conceptually makes sense. You are going one-on-one against the person. There are, fewer kind of coverage and schematic elements as there are in zone. And I'm not sure Darius Slay is going to be able to cover Keyshawn Boutte well. He has really struggled so far this season. He's like not a young man, at least in football terms. And even if Jalen Ramsey does play some snaps, I don't imagine he's going to shadow. I imagine he's going to be all across the formation. Like he got cooked last week too. And I mean, Jackson Jigba's a little bit of a different player than Keyshawn Boutte, but like I'm not scared of any shadow here. And tiny sample, of course. Drake May has happened to been terrific against man. He's got like a 0.8 EPA per play against man coverage so far this season. I'm not holding a ton of stock in that, but what I am holding a ton of stock in is like this is a Pittsburgh defense that I think can really struggle against the pass this season. I think Boutte's like the guy in man, has a good matchup, should win that, and like I think this happens much more likely. If this happens, this is reflective of like the Patriots are taking advantage of the Pittsburgh defense and winning that way. I think that is priced as the reverse. It's more likely to happen in a sort of negative game script. So you add those two things up. We got May 280, Boutte 100, New England money line. I believe that is 60-1 on DraftKings right now. Maybe Boutte 100 is 60-1. Let's try and make this back-to-back weeks here.
Yeah, I mean, from a fan perspective, hopefully not, but back-to-back weeks at 60-1 or higher would be sick. The Steelers, they're one of these teams on defense that does what they do. They show single high, play single high at the third highest rate of any defense this season, behind only Denver and Cleveland. They're going to play man coverage, and the Joey Porter injury does impact them doing that, because when that happens, You got Darius Slay and Jalen Ramsey on the outside, two older cornerbacks, right, who are trying to keep up with guys downfield. You also have Deshaun Elliott, who's missed time. He's DNP the first 2 days this week on the injury report. Alex Highsmith is DNP the first 2 days on the injury report. So it is a banged up Steelers defense, and I can certainly see the angle here.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough look. This was one of the more dominant defensive units in the NFL last season, and I'm particularly jaded after Jalen Ramsey sort of let me down there last week a little bit with the Jackson Smith and Jigba. Jackson, you got a new fan in me, buddy. So anyway, but that's it's a tough look for them. They're going to have to find out some ways to get better. To be honest, I'm slightly confused why they're favored on the road here. I mean, I don't necessarily think that New England is that much better of a team, but I think that home field advantage number should have been probably more in their favor than in the Steelers' favor here.
It's like the Patriots are tough to run on, right? And I was kind of on that week one with Genty's under. Like, Mike Vrabel defenses historically have been very good against the run, and they added to their front seven. So if the Steelers aren't able to run the ball, and like given what we've seen from them, I don't necessarily think they're going to be able to run the ball. It's putting a lot on Aaron Rodgers, right, to kind of carry their offense against New England, especially if New England's putting up points and Pittsburgh's getting into negative game scripts.
And to your point, they have a really high pass rate, but another place that we're going to see where it's almost just going to be Rodgers fighting against himself against this Patriots defense at the linebacker level. He has a really, really high PFF passing grade, about the third highest passing grade between the numbers there, and within 10 yards. So that's really what their offense has been this season, is the dink and dunk, not really pushing the ball downfield. And given how bad the Patriots linebackers have been in coverage, Robert Spillane, is 28.8 in coverage grade, 63rd out of 65 linebackers, and Ellis is 28.1, 64th. So they're right there at the bottom of the league. That's going to be a spot where Rodgers is going to be fighting against himself to not attack that over and over and over again. And maybe that comes to his advantage. But again, it's really not conducive to them putting up a ton of points or really being an effective offensive unit.
I'd also just add here, and like something we're having like Christian Gonzalez, I think, is going to be playing in this game. Yeah. And like I really think that changes the dynamic of this New England secondary, and certainly in this spot. Like, you need someone to cover DK Metcalf, and they don't really have that right now. I love Calvin Austin as much as the next guy. He's still like a small slot player. It's possible he can win some big reps here, but like they're on the right side of that advantage. Like, the Steelers are really getting nothing out of wide receiver 3 right now, and like you're not going to be able to take advantage of the weak links in the
wide receiver 3
as much.
Wide receiver 3 doesn't exist in Pittsburgh, Judah.
It does not exist.
It's 3 tight ends.
It simply does not exist.
Johnny Smith is wide receiver 3. All right, Mason, we're going to a game, important divisional game. I don't know how compelling it's going to be. We'll see.
Oh no, it's going to be compelling. Last time I think some of us forget, this was the Azeez Al-Shaair getting thrown out and a brawl happening. I think there's going to be some bad blood in this one. But just as a fun note, I really tried to build the same game parlay around absolutely busting the Bears defense with Dallas, but the odds just were not in the favor. They were reaching obscene numbers just to get 12-1. So we went in a little bit different direction. I like this one a lot too. This is going to be my Travis Etienne same game parlay. He has looked fantastic, a rejuvenation, and he's coming up against a struggling Houston run defense. So I have the game total here. Under 42.5 plus 107. Travis Etienne to go over 18 plus rushing attempts, 100 plus rush yards, and an anytime touchdown. If we go to this Houston run defense, it has not looked great through the first 2 games. 28th in run defense grade, 28th in EPA per rush, 30th in positively graded positively graded play rate, so the amount of plays that they have a defender that is beaten in the run game, and 27th in yards after contact per attempt at just 3.6. Last week versus Tampa Bay, they allowed a combined 136 to Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. I mean, that's a really great running offense, and I think when you look at it, there's that, connection there that Liam Cohen is also a really good run game specialist. He's really going to push this. I mean, we always talk about the passing game, but they had one of the top running offenses in the NFL last season. And a big place that they can take advantage of this Houston defense is is against inside zone, where Houston holds just a 38.0 grade defending against inside zone. Travis Etienne on inside zone runs, he's got 6 for 95 yards. That's 15.8 yards per carry. That is a big number. And when we look at where Etienne is in NFL ranks with a minimum of 15 carries, 7.1 yards per carry. That's first in the NFL. 4.2 yards after contact per attempt. That's second in the NFL. Only 2 backs in the NFL have 200 yards, him and Jonathan Taylor. 5 explosive plays, that's tied for first. And a big reason for that is this Jags unit up front is run blocking really, really well. They're second in PFF run block grade at 76.2, 9th in impact block percentage. So for anybody that doesn't know what the impact block rate is, that is when on the grading scale, if you do your job, you get a 0. When you go above and beyond your job, displace guys, flatten guys, you get a plus grade there in an impact block. They're at 46.4% there. 4 of their 5 starters up front rank in the top 15 in run blocking grade. Houston's highest graded run defender on the defensive line, Tim Settle, 61.2. That's not a great look for what they're going to be seeing against Jacksonville in this game. And I know that we saw, quite a bit of points against, they allowed quite a bit of points against Cincinnati, and it kind of went back and forth there. I think they're going to try to control this game, keep the ball out of CJ Stroud's hands, and really let Travis Etienne shine.
That was one of the more surprising things to me about Monday Night Football was how well the Bucs ran on Houston consistently.
It was the only thing that was saving them.
Yeah, it was
right? They could not pass protect. Baker couldn't do anything other than just hand it off and pray. And it was mind-boggling to me watching why are the Texans not just completely selling out to stop the run? You're gonna win all your pass rush snaps. Go man to man, 1-on-1 there. It was shocking, and they were running at will.
Yeah, it was every play was 5-6 yards. It didn't matter if it was Bucky Irving. It didn't matter if it was Rachaad White. And that was with a Tampa Bay offensive line that was in tatters. That was the offensive line. You were down worse than Gadecki. So that was certainly a concerning game for the Houston run defense. And I've kind of been on ETN in a few ways early in the season. It seems like they traded away Tank Bigsby. They got Bashaw Tutin involved a little bit last week, especially in the receiving game. But in terms of running the ball, it looks like ETN's the guy, and I like that. I also like pairing it with the under as well.
And to get off topic for a second, you hammered Danielle Hunter there, two sacks last week, and
oh yeah,
it just goes to show that it's exactly like you said. They should have just sold out to stop the run, and they didn't. And again, when we look at how the Jags, just talking about the under, when we look at how the Jags are going to match up against Houston here, this is another really good pass rushing unit. They've actually been forcing quite a few turnovers as well. So this really doesn't put Houston in a great situation in a really critical divisional game here.
Yeah, like that one. We will round it out with my SGP for the week, and you guys might need to bear with me on this one. It's kind of disgusting, but I like it. I actually really like it, and I'm probably
disgusting. It's beautiful.
I'm too leveraged on it. Last week I kind of similar angle, right, with a tight end against the Bengals and a quarterback, and Lawrence put up yards. Brenton Strange sadly was not a part of any of it. It was the Parker Washington game apparently for the Jaguars last week. But I talked about this is a Bengals defense that has historically struggled to defend tight ends dating back to last year. And Carson Wentz, his passing line is just so low this week. It's 202.5 yards. So the parlay I'm going with is Carson Wentz, 260 plus passing yards. Jamar Chase, 120 plus receiving yards. TJ Hawkinson, 6 plus receptions. That is 60-1. And the thought process here is, one, the Vikings offense has looked very bad for 7 of 8 quarters that they played this year. I think a large part of that is the chart that we showed when we were talking about Dallas-Chicago, where J.J. McCarthy, Judah mentioned, he was breaking the chart in destroy rate. Right? He was destroying a lot of plays. And this is still, if we go back to the priors we had before the season, we were high on Kevin O'Connell and this Vikings offense and the design of the system. The question was, what will they be able to do with J.J. McCarthy replacing Sam Darnold? We were very low on the Bengals defense, and they've kind of been a middle-of-the-pack unit through the first 2 weeks. They played the Browns and the Jaguars. I still am pretty low on this Bengals defense. So when you can get Carson Wentz stepping into a offense that we all think is well-designed and has weapons, even without Jordan Addison this week, the last week of the suspension, even without Aaron Jones, they seem very confident in Jordan Mason stepping into a clear lead role. Against this Bengals defense, this is a spot that I'm going to have interest in Carson Wentz and alts. We really haven't seen Carson Wentz much at all the last 2 years outside of 2 Week 18 games, one for the Chiefs last year when they were resting all their starters, played a very good Broncos defense, once for the Rams the year before. But it's kind of just taking a stab on believing in the offense and believing in Wentz being able to put up some production in what I think can be a back-and-forth game. The Hawkinson part of it, talked about the Bengals against tight ends. Carson Wentz also loves tight ends. Like, yes, they had Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia. That's part of it. But Carson Wentz is 4th in the NFL in passes targeting tight ends since 2016, and he hasn't really played the last couple years. So I always go back to Darren Sproles did a podcast like a year or two ago where he was talking about the offense with Carson Wentz and just how like he wasn't getting thrown the ball because Carson Wentz just loves tight ends. So like that's an anecdotal part of the TJ Hawkinson angle to go along with the Bengals and how they've struggled to cover tight ends. TJ Hawkinson without Aaron Jones, without Jordan Addison, right? Clear top target for Minnesota in this game. And then bringing it back with Jamar Chase, because if the Vikings are going to be putting up passing yards, like I think the Bengals are going to have to be scoring and pushing them a little bit. And this is a Jamar Chase smash spot to me, just given what we've seen from him against zone going back to last year. There's pretty clear man-zone splits between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Chase has a 26% target rate against zone, almost 3 yards per out run since the start of 2024. T. Higgins has a 21% target rate, 1.8 yards per out run. Like, Chase is clearly the guy against zone. The Vikings play 81% zone, 3rd in the NFL. And Jake Browning had a clear lean towards Jamar Chase when he played 2 years ago as well. And so I think this is similar to last week against Jacksonville, a spot where Jamar Chase has a chance to have a really big game.
16 targets last week. Absolutely incredible. So, and you know, to your point on the TJ Hawkinson thing, KOC loves tight ends too. Something that we talked about a couple weeks ago when I went on the over on TJ Hawkinson at 4.5. It didn't quite hit there, but that was more of a, you know, another drawback to the J.J. McCarthy destroy rate conversation as opposed to the offense, you know, just not targeting TJ Hawkinson.
My only criticism is that I don't think you're bullish enough.
Yeah.
From Carson Wentz, 250.
260.
If we get like Nick Mullins at the end of 2023 was like putting up like 300 yards a game. Obviously, it's like not the same circumstance, but like I think to your point, this is like a pretty bad Bengals defense. I don't think they have the pass rush to kind of take advantage, and also like I don't know how much of like JJ McCarthy sacks were JJ McCarthy relative to the offensive line, but like you can get a Carson Wentz 290, Carson Wentz 34 attempts. They're going to be ripping it in this game script. Hawkinson 6, Jamar Chase 120, Minnesota -3, 500 to 1. That'll be my bonus SGP.
I'm gonna fire.
Like
you've convinced me.
Fire it up.
Just like fire away here. I think this is like the epitome of a tails angle.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention it you talked about the offensive line. Like, I think there's a good chance Christian Darrisaw comes back this week.
Yeah.
He practiced on Wednesday. He did not practice on Thursday, but per the Minnesota beat reporters, that's by design after a full practice on Wednesday to give him the day off. Justin School is probably not going to play, so they don't have the guy who was replacing Darrisaw. Like, I think there's a good chance that Darrisaw comes back this week, which is big against Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals pass rush as well. So I was a little bit of a coward, I guess, right, based on that. But I'll get more aggressive and add to my position, even though I already have too much Carson Wentz right now already.
No such thing as too much Carson Wentz.
This is
why
how that
we
sounds.
We bet because we get to bet on Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I'll be saying I have entirely too much Carson Wentz at 3 p.m.
That's why he keeps getting starts. 6 teams, 6 years, because you can't have enough Carson Wentz.
That's right.
All right. It looks like we have a few bets that people like in the chat. Jordan Mason over 76.5 rushing yards. Here we got Carson Wentz 20 rushing yards. Get some scrambles on there. So maybe we'll just go Vikings SGPs with the prop culture bet too. That's all we got for this week. Like I mentioned at the top, you can check out all of our edges and where we see value is on player props in the player prop tool in the PFF app with a PFF Plus subscription. Also get access to all the premium stats and all of the lock content like highest graded players and all that stuff that comes out early next week.
And you can also, sorry, not to interrupt, you can also get 25% off of your PFF Plus subscription with code PFF NFL Show 25. You heard it from here. Keep it on the low, or actually tell all your friends.
That's a good shout, Mason. That's a good shout. Free, they're discounted PFF Plus. What can be better than that? Until next week, hopefully we bounce back and one of us hits another big SGP. Hopefully the 500-1 Carson Wentz SGP Judah's talking about. We'll be back in week 4. Thanks for watching. See you, everyone.